Imagine the sea at night. The sky above is wide and endless, sprinkled with cold stars. The air is sharp, salted, and restless, the wind shifting in long sighs across the dark water. Beneath you, a wooden longship creaks as waves lift it gently and then lower it again, a rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. The sound of water slapping against the hull is constant, the smell of brine and wet wood thick in the air. This is no grand voyage of heroes, no tale of glory sung around a fire. This is the daily life of a Viking sailor, cold, cramped, and unrelenting. Here, there are no cabins, no warm bunks, no shelter from the weather. Every man aboard, from warrior to farmer to rower, lives exposed to the sky, to the rain, to the wind, and yet they endured. They endured because the sea was the road that carried them to trade, to raid, to settle, to explore. But endurance came at a price: aching muscles, constant hunger, damp clothes, and the endless struggle against nature. For us today, accustomed to comfort, such a life would be unbearable. To them, it was survival. Tonight, we step aboard a Viking longship. We will hear the creak of its timbers, feel the bite of the wind, taste the stale bread and salted fish, and sense the quiet fear of endless horizons. We will see why it was a life few of us could withstand, and why the memory of these voyages endures still. The Viking longship was built for speed and strength, not for comfort. Long and narrow, with a shallow keel, it could slice through rivers and seas alike, gliding swiftly where heavier ships would falter. Its prow rose high, often carved with a dragon's head or serpent's form, a silent guardian that cut the waves ahead. But beneath this proud figure, life for the crew was harsh and confined. Imagine stepping onto the deck. There are no cabins, no private spaces. The ship is open to the sky, its wooden planks bare and wet. Along the sides, oars extend, each one handled by a sailor who must row for hours at a time. In the center, small chests serve as seats during travel. These same chests hold the sailor's few belongings: spare clothing, tools, perhaps a small keepsake. At night, those same chests become pillows, and the deck itself becomes their bed. The air is always damp. When it rains, there is no roof to hide beneath. When the sun blazes, there is no shade. Cloaks are wrapped tightly, but they soon soak through. The cold of the North Sea seeps into bones, leaving fingers stiff, toes numb. At night, when men try to sleep, they lie on wet planks, cloaks pulled over their heads, the sea rocking them into uneasy rest. Privacy does not exist. Every movement, every breath, every cough is shared. If one man snores, all hear it. If one grows sick, all smell it, all fear it. A long voyage means weeks together in this confined space, bound shoulder to shoulder, with only the sea to separate them from silence. Food is stored in barrels and sacks, tucked wherever space allows. Water is kept in casks, but it soon grows stale, its taste sour. Rats creep among supplies at night, chewing holes in cloth, gnawing at dried bread. The sailors know they must ration carefully, for the sea offers no second chances, and yet there is rhythm. By day, they row, their bodies swaying together, the oars dipping into water in unison. By night, they lie close upon the deck, huddled for warmth. The ship is their world, a floating island of wood and flesh, carrying them toward shores unknown. For us, this would feel unbearable: days without shelter, nights without rest, weeks without privacy. But for the Viking sailor, this was life. Harsh, unchanging, and endured with quiet resilience. On land, the Vikings could feast. They roasted meat, brewed strong ale, and shared banquets filled with laughter and song. But on the open sea, life was very different. Here, food was not celebration. It was survival, measured, plain, and often unpleasant. Imagine opening a barrel on the deck. The smell rises at once, sharp, salty, slightly sour. Inside are slabs of salted fish herring, cod, or salmon, preserved with heavy layers of coarse salt. The flesh is dry, stiff, and far too salty to enjoy. To eat it, the sailors must soak it briefly in seawater, or chew it slowly until their mouths are parched. But there is no other choice. Without salt, the fish would rot within days, and so it is eaten piece by piece as the weeks pass. Alongside the fish lies hardtack, a kind of bread made not for taste, but for endurance. It is baked from barley or rye, hard as wood, dry as bone. Bite into it, and it scrapes against the teeth. Some pieces carry the faint bitterness of mold, creeping in from damp air. Others are riddled with small holes, the marks of insects or rats that have nibbled at them in the night. Yet the sailors eat, breaking each piece with effort, chewing until their jaws ache. There is dried meat, strips of venison or mutton hung and smoked before departure. Tough, leathery, and dark, it requires long chewing, the fibers breaking slowly in the mouth. Sometimes it is boiled with seawater in small iron pots to soften it, creating a thin broth. The broth tastes of salt and metal, but it warms the belly, and warmth matters more than flavor. Water is carried in barrels, sealed tightly, but fresh water never lasts long. After a few days at sea, it grows stale, the surface gathering a faint film, the taste turning sour. Sailors drink sparingly, pinching their noses, swallowing quickly. To make water stretch, they turn to weak ale brewed, thin, low in alcohol, but safer to drink than foul water. It has a bitter edge, slightly sour, yet it soothes parched throats and steadies the spirit. Sometimes, if luck is with them, sailors catch fresh food at sea. Nets are cast into the waves, pulling up wriggling fish that glisten silver in the light. These are roasted quickly on small fires kindled in metal trays upon the deck, their skins blackened, their flesh tender. The taste is a gift, a break from the endless monotony of salted fare. Yet such catches are rare, and never enough to feed all. Hunger is constant. Portions are small, carefully divided to last the journey. A man may chew his fish slowly, savoring every fiber, though the taste is sharp with salt. Another may gnaw his bread for long minutes, softening it with seawater or ale. Meals are not shared in merriment. They are taken in silence. Each man bent over his ration, the creak of the ship and the rush of the sea his only companions. And the body feels it. Salt dries the mouth, leaving thirst unquenched. Hardtack sits heavy in the stomach, hard to digest. Weak ale dulls hunger for a while, but it does not fill. Stomachs grow tight, cramps twist the belly, and weakness seeps slowly into limbs. Yet the sailors eat what they are given, day after day, for without it, strength would vanish and the oars would fall still. To us, such meals would be unbearable. We expect variety, freshness, flavor, but for the Viking sailor, food was fuel, nothing more. Each bite was not pleasure, but necessity. Each swallow another step toward survival. Imagine the longship at dusk. The sailors sit quietly, cloaks pulled close against the cold, each chewing slowly on his ration of fish and bread. The sun sinks, the sea darkens, and their meal ends not with laughter or song, but with weary silence. Tomorrow it will be the same fish, the same bread, the same ale, the same hunger that never fully fades, and still they endure. Out on the open sea, there is no shelter, no wall, no tree, no roof to protect the sailor. Only water in every direction, stretching beyond sight, and the endless sky above. To live upon a Viking ship was to surrender completely to the moods of the sea and the weather. Some days the water was calm, the air still, the horizon soft and blue. Other days the sea turned into a beast, roaring with wind, shattering waves, and skies black as night. Imagine waking in the dim hours of dawn. The sky is pale, streaked with gray clouds that hang low and heavy. The air bites at your face, carrying the chill of salt and mist. Around you, the sea stretches vast and unbroken, no land in sight, only water rising and falling in great, slow swells. The ship creaks as it climbs one wave and slides down another, the motion constant, never-ending. You feel it in your stomach, in your legs, in every movement of your body, the rhythm of the sea, rocking you without rest. Some days the sea lies flat, smooth as glass, the water dark and still, reflecting the sky like a mirror. In these moments, silence surrounds the ship. Oars dip gently, birds circle overhead, and the air feels almost sacred, as though the world itself has paused. Yet even this calm carries unease, for too much stillness means the wind has died. The sails hang limp, the ship drifts slowly, and progress halts. Hunger grows sharper when the journey stretches longer than planned. Other days, storms rise, clouds gather on the horizon, dark as ink, and the wind begins to howl across the water. The sea stirs, waves climbing higher, slapping hard against the hull. Rain lashes down, soaking every cloak, every rope, every plank of wood. The longship heaves and shudders, its timbers groaning as if alive. The men cling to the oars, their hands raw, their bodies drenched, as the sea tosses them like toys. In the dark of night, lightning cracks open the sky, illuminating white foam and terrified faces for a single blinding instant before shadows return. And then there is the cold. In northern waters, the air itself cuts like a blade. At night, frost forms upon the planks, stiffening ropes, numbing fingers. Breath steams in the air, cloaks stiffen with ice, and sleep becomes nearly impossible. Men huddle together for warmth, their bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, shivering as the sea rocks beneath them. In such moments, the sea feels less like water and more like a vast, frozen wilderness, indifferent to their suffering. The sun, too, can be merciless. In summer voyages, the long days stretch endlessly, the light blinding upon the water. Skin burns, lips crack, and thirst sharpens with every hour. There is no shade, no relief, only the glare of sun upon waves, a glare that blinds the eyes and scorches the flesh. Mist and fog bring another trial. Imagine rowing forward, the sea hidden by a thick gray shroud, the horizon erased. The world shrinks to the length of the ship, sound muffled, sight vanished. The oars splash steadily, but no one knows what lies ahead. Hidden rocks, sudden shores, or enemy ships waiting in silence. Fear spreads quietly, unspoken, as each man stares into the blankness, straining to see what is not there. Through it all, the sea is endless. Day after day, the same horizon stretches before them. The same waves rise and fall. The same wind whistles in the rigging. Time becomes strange. Was it yesterday the storm struck? Was it last week they saw land? The days blur into one long trial of endurance, where the only certainty is the creak of wood and the taste of salt upon the tongue. For us, a single night on such waters would be unbearable. The wet, the cold, the fear of storms or fog would break our spirits. But for the Viking sailor, this was the path they knew the road that led them to trade, to raid, to discovery. The sea was their highway, their enemy, and their companion. They endured it not because it was kind, but because it was unescapable. And so they pressed on, stroke by stroke, wave by wave, their lives bound to the moods of the endless sea. The Viking longship was built for speed, but speed came at a cost. It was not sails alone that carried it across seas and rivers. It was muscle, the arms, shoulders, and backs of the men who rowed, hour after hour, day after day, driving the ship forward with nothing but wood, flesh, and willpower. Picture yourself seated on the narrow wooden bench of the ship. In your hands rests a heavy oar, its shaft polished smooth by years of use, its blade wide and wet with spray. Your feet brace against the opposite bench, your back leans forward, and as the signal comes, you pull. The oar dips into the water with a heavy splash, and you heave, your body straining as the wood bends against the weight of the sea. Now imagine this, not once, not twice, but hundreds of times, each stroke followed by another and another, until the rhythm becomes the whole of your world. Lean forward, dip the blade, pull back, breathe. Lean forward, dip the blade, pull back, breathe. The motion is endless, the rhythm hypnotic, the repetition unbroken. The body suffers first in small ways. Blisters rise on your palms, breaking open, stinging with salt water. Your shoulders burn, your arms ache, your back stiffens, until each movement feels like tearing muscle from bone. The oar itself feels heavier with each hour, as though the sea itself is trying to wrench it from your grip. And yet you hold it, for to stop is to break the rhythm, to leave your brothers carrying your weight. The sound fills your ears, the splash of oars entering water, the groan of the ship as it surges forward, the labored breathing of men beside you. Together, these sounds weave into a steady chant, wordless and deep. No one speaks, but the rhythm unites you. It becomes like a song without words, a heartbeat of wood and water, carrying you across the sea. There are moments when the oars move almost without thought. Your body aches, but it obeys. Your mind drifts, wandering through memories, through prayers, through silence. You stare at the horizon, gray and endless, your hands pulling the oar as if in a dream. Hours slip by in this trance, the rhythm soothing even as it exhausts. But there are also moments of despair. When the wind rises against you, the oars feel twice as heavy, each stroke barely moving the ship forward. When the sea is calm and the sails hang useless, you row not for an hour, but for entire days. Muscles tremble, sweat stings the eyes, hunger gnaws the belly, and still the rhythm continues, stroke after stroke, because it must. At night, even in darkness, the rowing may continue. Torches flicker faintly, stars wheel above, but the oars still dip and rise, dip and rise, the ship pressing onward through shadows. Sleep is delayed. rest postponed, for the sea will not wait. For us, a single hour of such labor would be crushing, to row in silence, wet and cold, until the arms shake and the chest heaves, would feel impossible. Yet, for the Viking sailor, it was daily life. His body hardened to it, and so the oars never stopped. Stroke by stroke, they carved their way through waves, carrying the ship forward, carrying men into exhaustion, into silence, into the endless horizon. To sail across the open sea, without maps, without compasses, without charts as we know them today, seems impossible. And yet the Vikings did it. Their longships reached distant coasts: England, Ireland, Iceland, Greenland, even as far as Vinland, across the Atlantic. They found their way not with instruments, but with the sky, the sea, and a knowledge passed from generation to generation. Imagine standing on the deck at dawn. The horizon glows pale, the sea a mirror of soft colors. The helmsman, hand upon the great steering oar, scans the sun's rising. He knows where it will break the horizon, how high it will climb by midday, how it will sink again into the west. By its path, he measures direction, adjusting the sail and the stroke of oars to keep the ship steady. On cloudy days, the sun hides, but the Vikings are said to have used the sunstone, a crystal, perhaps Iceland spar, that reveals the sun's position even through thick clouds or mist. Hold it to the light, turn it slowly, and the glow shifts, guiding the eye toward the hidden sun. In this way, they found direction when the sky itself seemed to deny it. At night, the stars became their map. The North Star, steady and unmoving, anchored the heavens. Around it, constellations wheeled slowly, telling the passage of time, the turn of seasons. The helmsman, watching carefully, knew which stars marked north, which marked east, and which would lead them toward distant shores. Each point of light was a signpost, each constellation a road. But the sea itself also guided them. The color of the water, the flight of birds, the drift of clouds, these too were clues. Near land, the sea, darkened with silt, seaweed floated upon its surface, and the smell of earth carried faint upon the wind. Birds circled, their wings flashing white against the sky. Some, like gulls, never flew far from land. To see them was to know the shore was near, even if the horizon remained empty. Sometimes they released ravens from cages kept aboard. The birds rose into the air, circling wide. If they returned, the sailors knew land was still far away. If they did not, it meant the shore lay ahead, invisible but certain. Imagine a quiet night upon the longship. The sea is calm, the stars sharp above, the air cool upon the skin. The sailors lie upon the deck, close, pillow tight, eyes half closed with weariness. Only the helmsman remains awake, watching the heavens, his hand steady upon the oar. The stars are his compass, the sea his guide. In silence, he carries the ship forward, each moment measured by the slow turning of the sky. For us today, accustomed to maps, compasses, and lights, such navigation feels impossible. To trust only the sun, the stars, the birds, and the waves is to live at the mercy of nature. Yet for the Vikings, it was second nature, learned from fathers and grandfathers, ingrained through voyages that began in youth. Still, the sea is fickle. Clouds could hide the sun for days. Storms blot out the stars. Birds vanish into mist. In such times, doubt crept in. Were they still on course? Were they drifting into endless water, never to find land again? The silence of the crew grew heavy. their eyes fixed upon the horizon, their prayers whispered to gods of sea and sky. And yet, more often than not, the Vikings found their way. Across seas, across centuries, across horizons unseen. Their voyages were not miracles, but the result of endless patience and a deep, almost spiritual bond with the natural world. To lie upon the deck beneath those same stars, listening to the waves, feeling the ship sway, is to sense that bond. The sea is no longer chaos, is a road beneath your hands. And in the silence of night, the Viking sailor moves forward, guided not by compass or chart, but by the eternal rhythm of the world itself. A Viking longship was more than wood, and sail it was a small, floating world, and every world needs order. To keep dozens of men together on open water, discipline was essential. Life on the sea was harsh enough. Without structure, it would descend quickly into chaos. And so, each man knew his place. Each man knew who commanded, who obeyed, and what happened if that balance broke. At the top stood the captain, often a chieftain or seasoned warrior. He was not merely a helmsman guiding the ship's rudder, but the leader of the voyage, the one whose decisions carried the weight of survival. His word determined when to row, when to sail, when to land, and when to fight. In his hands lay the trust of every man aboard. Beside him stood the steersman, the helmsman whose hand gripped the great steering oar. His skill was vital without him. The ship could drift off course, crash upon unseen rocks, or wander endlessly across open seas. His eyes scanned horizon and stars, his judgment a compass that kept the crew alive. Below them were the warriors, men of strength and skill, chosen not only for their ability to fight, but for their endurance at sea. Their shields lined the sides of the ship, ready for battle. They rowed as well, their hands blistered like any sailors, but when land appeared, they became the sword of the expedition. And beneath them, in rank but not in labor, were the rowers and common sailors. Some were free men seeking fortune, others were bondsmen, bound by debt or obligation. They hauled the oars, loaded cargo, cooked meager meals, repaired ropes and sails. Without them, the ship could not move. Yet their voices carried little weight. Orders flowed from above, and they obeyed. Discipline was strict. In the tight space of the longship, disobedience could not be tolerated. A man who refused to row endangered all. A man who stole food or water risked starving his brothers. Punishments were swift loss of rations, blows struck in anger, even being cast overboard on the harshest voyages. Few needed reminding. The sea itself was punishment enough, and order meant survival. Yet there was also camaraderie. The men knew each other well, for voyages were long and bonds were forged in hardship. Warriors and sailors alike shared food, pulled at the same oars, slept side by side upon the same damp planks. Rank mattered, but so too did endurance. A weak rower slowed the ship as surely as a broken mast. Even the smallest tasks carried meaning. A boy on board might be tasked with tending the fire in its iron tray, keeping embers alive so food could be warmed. Another might fetch water, patch sails, or carry messages. Each task, however small, wove into the life of the ship, each man a thread in its fabric. Still, tension was never far. Hunger sharpens tempers, storms fray nerves, long days in silence turn glances into grudges. A careless word might spark anger, a selfish act bring punishment. The captain's authority, the discipline of the hierarchy, kept such sparks from consuming the voyage. For us today, The thought of such order feels stifling. To live without freedom, bound by the voice of one man, punished for the smallest disobedience, seems unbearable. But on the sea, freedom was an illusion. The waves cared nothing for liberty. Survival required obedience, discipline, and unity. And so the hierarchy endured. The captain commanded, the helmsman guided, the warriors fought, the sailors rowed, and together they carried the longship forward. It was not equality, but it was order. And in the endless uncertainty of the sea, order was the difference between life and death. The sea was vast, endless, and indifferent. To the Viking sailor, it was not only a road, but also a mystery, a place filled with both promise and dread. Each horizon carried hope of land, wealth, or discovery, but also the quiet terror of what lay hidden beyond sight. Imagine a night upon the longship. The stars glitter above, yet the sea itself is black, its surface invisible. The only sounds are the creak of wood, the sigh of wind in the sail, and the splash of water against the hull. The men lie upon the damp planks, their cloaks drawn tight, eyes half open, ears straining. For though the sea is calm, the unknown presses close, heavy and unseen. Stories lived in their minds, tales of sea monsters, the great serpent Jormungandr, said to coil around the world, its body vast as mountains, its eyes glowing like fire. Some spoke of whales larger than villages, capable of swallowing ships whole. Others feared islands that were no islands at all, but the backs of giant creatures, waiting to plunge beneath the waves and drag men with them. These fears were more than stories. In a world without maps, where new coasts appeared as if conjured, anything felt possible. A shadow on the water, a distant roar, the sudden surge of waves. It was easy to believe something vast stirred beneath. Even without monsters, the unknown was terrifying. A ship could drift for weeks without sight of land, food dwindling, water souring, men growing thin and weary. Was land ahead, or had they strayed into endless water, doomed never to return? Doubt gnawed at the heart, heavier than hunger, colder than wind. Fog made it worse. Imagine waking to find the world swallowed in gray. The sea, the sky, the horizon all gone, erased by mist. The ship feels adrift in nothingness, its motion silent, its direction uncertain. Every splash seems closer, every creak sharper, as though unseen things move just beyond the veil. Men whisper of reefs, of hidden rocks, of ships that vanished without trace. In the fog, imagination becomes fear, and fear becomes certainty. Storms, too, carried their own terrors. When waves rose higher than the mast, and winds howled like wolves, the men clung to the ship, their prayers shouted into the gale. At such times, death felt near, not by sword or spear, but by the endless hand of the sea itself. Many Vikings believed that those who drowned did not reach Valhalla, but instead wandered forever in cold darkness. That thought chilled them more than the water itself. Even in calm, the fear lingered. The sea had no walls, no paths, no signposts. At any moment, the voyage could tip into disaster. A broken mast, a cracked hull, a sickness spreading among the many of these could mean the end. Far from home, with no grave but the deep. And so the men whispered prayers to the gods, to Injured, god of the sea, for safe passage, to Thor for strength against storms, to Odin for wisdom to guide them. They carved runes into wood, cast charms into the waves, carried amulets at their throats. Whether these truly protected them, they did not know. But in the face of the unknown, faith was as vital as food, as essential as the oars. For us today, the unknown of the sea is still vast, but softened by maps, compasses, and lights. For the Viking sailor, it was raw and immediate, a presence felt in every wave, every shadow, every starless night. Fear was not a passing thought, it was a constant companion. And yet they sailed. They faced the fog, the storms, the darkness, because the sea was their road, their chance, their destiny. Fear did not vanish, was endured, carried like the weight of the oars, accepted as part of the journey. In the end, the unknown remained. The sea never gave its secrets easily. It swallowed ships, it drowned men, it whispered in waves and winds. But the Viking sailor pressed on, heart heavy with dread, yet hands steady upon the oars. Life aboard the longship was cold, hungry, and exhausting. Yet, even in such hardship, the sailors found brief moments of comfort, small fragments of warmth and companionship that made the endless days bearable. These were not feasts or luxuries, but little rituals of humanity, treasured all the more because they were so rare. Imagine dusk settling over the ship after a long day of rowing. The horizon glows faintly orange, the sea calm at last after hours of struggle. The oars rest silent, the sail hangs slack, and the crew gathers close. In an iron tray, a small fire smolders, shielded from the wind. Around it, men warm their hands, holding them close to the glow, sighing softly as numb fingers loosen. Into the pot above, strips of dried fish or meat are dropped, softened by boiling water. The smell, though faint and simple, brings relief, the promise of a meal that is warm, not cold, tender, not tough. For once, conversation stirs, quiet voices rise, laughter slips free. A man hums a tune, another begins a story, his words slow and steady, carrying across the ship. The tale may be of gods and heroes, Thor's hammer-striking giants, Odin's wanderings, Loki's trickster. It may be of home, the field he left behind, the woman waiting, the child he has yet to see grow. The men listen, their heads bowed, their faces lit faintly by firelight, and for a moment, the ship feels less like a prison and more like a hall. Sometimes they sang, not chants of prayer, but simple sea songs, rhythms that matched the pull of the oars, melodies that carried them forward. The voices were rough, uneven, yet together they created a sound that filled the night air, a comfort against the emptiness of the horizon. The songs spoke of bravery, of journeys past, of love left behind. They were reminders that even in hardship, men could lift their spirits with sound. In calm weather, there was leisure. Men mended clothes, their needles glinting in the fading light. They carved wood into small figures, dragons, birds, even toys for children waiting at home. Some polished weapons, others tightened ropes, but all moved slowly, without urgency, grateful for the stillness. And there was comfort, too, in simple acts of care. A man shared his cloak with one shivering beside him. Another passed a piece of bread from his ration to one who was hungrier. Wounds were cleaned, blisters wrapped, shoulders rubbed after long hours at the oars. These were small gestures, but in a life of constant strain, they meant survival, not only of the body, but of the spirit. At night, when the sea was calm, the stars spread across the sky like a great dome. The men lay on the deck, their cloaks pulled tight, their eyes watching the heavens. For once, The creak of oars was silent, the sail catching a steady breeze. In the stillness, the sea itself became a kind of comfort, its rhythm gentle, its surface glimmering faintly with starlight. Some drifted into sleep, listening to the sigh of waves. Others whispered prayers of thanks for another day endured. These moments were fleeting. A storm could return by morning, hunger gnaw again by midday. But they were remembered, cherished, held close in memory when the sea turned cruel once more. For in such small fragments swarm food, shared laughter, a song in the dark, the Viking sailor found the strength to continue. For us today, these comforts might seem too meager to matter. But for men living exposed to wind, cold, and fear, they were lifelines. A cup of hot broth, a familiar tale, a hand upon the shoulder, these became treasures greater than gold. And so, though their days were harsh and their nights weary, the sailors endured, carried forward not only by strength of arm and will, but by these rare and precious moments of comfort. After days, sometimes weeks, of endless horizon, the moment of landfall was unlike any other. Imagine the crew, weary and silent, their faces gaunt from salt and hunger, their eyes scanning the horizon. At first, nothing, just the shimmer of sea and the pale line of sky. But then, faint and distant, a darker shadow appears, rising slowly above the water's edge. A murmur stirs among the men. The shadow grows clearer coastline, a ridge of hills, the faint green of trees, perhaps the white line of waves breaking upon a shore. Hope swells in tired hearts. The endless sea has given way at last to solid earth. For some, it means rest. For others, it means the beginning of danger. The air itself changes near land. The smell of salt is joined by the faint scent of soil and greenery, carried across the water by wind. Birds wheel overhead, their cries sharper, more frequent. The sea grows shallower, its color shifting from deep gray to pale green. All these signs tell the crew that their voyage is nearing its end. But what awaits on shore? That is the question. Sometimes the voyage is for trade, to bring furs, amber, and walrus ivory in exchange for silver, grain, or wine. In such times, the men prepare their goods, adjusting cloaks, polishing weapons, not for use, but for display, ensuring they look strong, respectable, and worth dealing with. They speak little, each man knowing that the first meeting with locals may decide the fate of the voyage. Other times, the voyage is for raid. Then the preparations are quiet but tense. Shields are lifted from the ship's side, weapons checked and sharpened. Axes gleam in pale light, swords rest upon laps, bows strung and ready. There is no cheering, no shouting, only silence, broken by the creak of wind and the beat of oars as the ship draws closer to shore. Each man knows what is to come, though none speaks it aloud. The longship glides into shallow water, its prow striking sand with a dull thud. If it is trade, voices call out, gestures made to show peace. If it is raid, the silence breaks with sudden cries, the clash of weapons, the rush of men charging forward. But even raids are not always as legends tell. For many sailors, landfall meant not battle, but simple relief, the chance to stretch legs upon solid ground, to find fresh water that does not sour, to taste food not salted or dried. It meant sleep on grass or soil instead of damp planks, the sound of birds instead of waves, the warmth of fire built high without fear of wind. Still, the uncertainty lingered. Every shore was new, every village unknown, every encounter unpredictable. Friends or foes, wealth or war, safety or death, all might await beyond the sand. To step ashore was to step into mystery. Imagine the moment as the men carry the ship onto the beach, its keel grinding upon pebbles, its dragon prow rising above the sand. Behind them lies the endless sea, before them the unknown land. Their hearts beat faster, their hands tighten upon weapons or goods. The air is filled with the scent of pine and smoke, the cries of gulls, the crash of surf. For us today, landfall is certain a harbor waiting, a map to guide us, a dock to welcome us. For the Viking sailor, it was always a gamble. Relief and danger walked side by side, but whether for trade or raid, for peace or plunder, landfall was the moment that gave meaning to the long days at sea. It was the proof that their suffering had purpose, that their voyage had reached its turning point, and it was the promise that, at least for a time, the endless sea had been conquered. The Viking sailor lived a life of hardship, cold nights on wet planks, endless rowing, hunger that never left, and fear that never slept. Yet from that suffering came voyages that reshaped the world. Their longships carried them farther than most dared to dream, and their legacy can still be felt today. They were not only raiders, though their raids are most remembered. They were also traders and explorers, weaving paths of commerce across seas and rivers. Their ships brought furs from the north, amber from the Baltic, ivory from walrus tusks, and slaves taken in raids. In return, they carried back silver, wine, spices, silk goods that tied their distant world to the great trade routes of Europe, Byzantium, and even the Middle East. They were settlers as well. Their voyages carried them to Iceland, Greenland, and beyond. In their sagas, they spoke of Vinland, a land across the ocean that many believe was North America, centuries before Columbus. To survive such journeys without compass or map is testament to their endurance, their bond with sea and sky. They left behind more than stories. The very design of their ship's-long, sleek, shallow-keeled was so advanced that echoes of it shaped naval craft for generations. Their methods of navigation, their courage to push into the unknown, their ability to survive on the harshest seas became part of the long memory of human exploration. But perhaps their greatest legacy lies in their spirit, the endurance of men who lived where most would falter. Few today could survive what a Viking sailor endured: the hunger, the salt, the storms, the silence, and yet they endured not for days or weeks, but for lifetimes, their voyages spanning decades, their stories carried on for centuries. The Viking sailor's life was not glorious. It was not the shining tale of sagas, but the weary labor of oars, the gnaw of hunger, the chill of wet cloaks. It was survival in its rawest form. And yet, without it, there would have been no sagas at all, no raids, no trade, no discoveries. Behind every legend of kings and warriors stood the sailors who endured the sea. And now, imagine the sea once more. The voyage is done. The ship rests upon a quiet shore, its dragon prow watching the waves. The sailors, weary and thin, lie upon the sand, listening to the hush of water, the whisper of wind through grass. Their bodies ache, their eyes close, their breath slows. The sea, which once roared and raged, now laps gently at the shore, its rhythm soft, steady, almost like a lullaby. The stars wheel slowly overhead, their light shimmering upon calm waves. The longship creaks faintly as it settles, its timbers groaning in the night, as if sighing with relief. The sailors sleep at last, not on wet planks, but on earth, warm beneath the cloak of night. Their oars rest silent, their hands open, their hearts quiet. The journey has ended, and with it, the fear, the hunger, the cold. Only peace remains, and as you listen, you too may rest. Let the rhythm of the sea soothe you, the hush of waves calm your thoughts, the memory of the voyage fade into silence. Close your eyes, let the hardships of the sailors drift away. Let the sea carry you gently into sleep. The longship fades, the stars remain, and in their quiet light you find rest.